Hey there, Tolkieneers. I'm Keep on Tolkien's Danny J, and I would like to welcome you to our 2023 Halloween special. Today we're going to be discussing how scary the Lord of the Rings movies are. For today's excerpt, we're going to read some quotes from the internet from actual parents about how scary and messed up the Lord of the Rings is. Please enjoy.
Gandalf leans over to pick up the ring, and a very sudden flash of the eye with a loud noise happens. May startle many. Two young men jump on the troll's back, stabbing it in the head. A man shoots the troll in the mouth with an arrow, and the troll falls hard to the ground, dead.
The formation of lurts is grotesque. Some may find it disturbing. When a man is affected by the ring, he becomes irrational and gets somewhat scary, shouting and grabbing other characters.
There are many battles between humans and disparate types of evil and scary-looking creatures. Some have yellow eyes and pointed teeth. There's a creepy-looking creature that has a gravelly voice. Several scary creatures have red eyes, pointed teeth, and walk like monkeys and snarl. They topple trees and dig a huge hole in the earth and uncover a nasty, growling creature that grows out of slime in the ground. The armies of the dark forces are slimy-skinned, have pointed teeth, yellow eyes, and growl like animals. An army of men does battle with the Dark Lord and his minions. Swords and other sharp weapons are everywhere, and bodies are strewn all over.
Hey there, Tolkieneers. I'm Danny J.
And I'm Joel N.
I'm Trevor D.
I'm Joe Vasky.
And
together we are
Keep
on Tolkien.
Oh yeah,
Hey.
that sounded pretty cool.
Yeah,
well,
dude, that
pretty
was good.
How you doing, guys? Today's our 2023 Halloween special.
Yeah, and it also marks the occasion of us being back for the second half of season 7.
That's right. Second
that's
half of season, back half of season 7.
This is episode 88. This is crazy.
And we get to start it with Halloween, which is
Yes.
extra awesome.
That's all. That's why I
Extra.
love this time of year.
Extra.
Yeah, this is the only orange that I own, and I see that none of you are an orange.
Oh damn! yeah.
Oh, Joe's got
Joe's got a
Joe's
little
got
bit of
some
orange. Yeah,
Got a little orange.
you guys can't see that on account of this being radio, but you know,
Yeah, they're wearing orange, just so you know.
we'll describe it to you.
Gotta know, we're faithful to the holiday.
Yeah, totally. We love Halloween. It's like our favorite holiday. We're crazy about it. And that's why we're having our dear friend Joe Vasky on the show today, because we're going to be discussing film again, and that's why we're bringing him back. Joe Vasky, what's up, dude?
Hey, yeah, I'm the one that paid like $50,000 for the film degree.
Yes,
So
that's
I'm
him.
here.
He's here. And
here.
he's not getting paid for this either, so it's not technically a job with that degree. I apologize, Joe.
It's experience, okay?
Yeah. Can you are you technically an intern?
Yeah, pretty
An unpaid
pretty much.
intern.
But yeah, Joe's also a massive fan of not only the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but also horror and Peter Jackson films.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about Peter Jackson films in our Halloween special last year, episode 68. Our friend Peter.
Yeah, a full ass 20 episodes ago.
Yeah, go check that out. That was actually a real fun episode.
But yeah, this is going to be a film-heavy episode, guys. So we're going to be doing some analysis of the horror sequences in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah, we're going to discussing the different film techniques that Peter Jackson uses to create moments of horror in the trilogy. All kinds of aspects. We've got lighting, art direction, cinematography, sound design, and editing.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff, guys. And the Lord of the Rings is actually rated PG-13, believe it or not. Joe, why don't you read the MPAA reading for the Lord of the Rings?
It's intense, epic battle sequences and scary images.
Scary images.
I love that they use the word epic in there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually. Yeah.
This is actually too epic.
Yeah.
We might need to make it PG-13.
It's like
Yeah.
maybe they were a little biased here. They're real excited about this.
Yeah, they fucking love it. Everyone loves Lord of the Rings. And it actually earns that PG-13 rating.
I was going to say, too, they nowadays, they would also probably have something about smoking in there.
Probably.
On the
Yeah.
parental guides that I read, a lot of them talked about substance use in the movies.
Yeah, I
Really.
suppose they're
Yeah.
smoking and drinking.
They're
yeah.
smoking and drinking a lot, yep.
Is it really a lot though? I mean,
For a fucking modern movie, everyone hates smoking now, Trevor.
oh no. I just mean like with at least the drinking. I know they had like
Ah,
pipes and stuff.
Drinking's
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hobbits are partying, drinking. The Rohirrim are always drinking. The Gondorians drink. Everyone's drinking.
Yeah.
I watched a YouTube episode or a YouTube compilation of every death in Lord of the Rings, and it is pretty it is pretty violent for a PG-13 film. And I also counted how many beheadings were in the trilogy.
Ooh.
This was the extended editions.
Okay.
For the whole
So-
trilogy?
There's more in the extended editions?
Well, yeah.
More-
Yes.
more
There's at
beheading?
least one.
I do know that for sure.
Yeah.
And there also might be more beheadings. I just counted the obvious ones that I could see.
Okay.
But
I'm gonna guess 7.
Mm.
I don't even know what the base, because there's a lot of severed heads throughout in one of the films for sure. So
I didn't count each individual
Yeah.
head that was flung over the wall. Just that would have been too much.
It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah. Pause it.
here, I'm gonna aim high. I'm gonna go 11.
Ooh. See, I was actually going to round up to 15, but I'm going to go 15. 15 beheadings throughout the extended trilogy.
So I don't know. So I counted 9.
Damn, I was closest without
Ooh.
going over.
Oh, you
Ooh,
had
we're
to throw
doing
in the
Price is
without
Right.
going over.
Price is right. Price is right rules. I won. Yeah, but one of the things you might remember about the Lord of the Rings trilogy, if you saw it when you were like 10 fucking years old, like we were, is that some of this shit is fucking scary. And I can attest, just personally, that several scenes scared the living shit out of me when I first saw the film.
Yeah, the trilogy was one of the first big movies I was allowed to watch in theaters because my family was like, oh, yeah, let's go see this family-friendly movie. And it was intense for me. I remember that. That was my first exposure to like a lot of these horror concepts we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about some of our own personal testimonials real quick. Like I mentioned, I was allowed to go see it because my mom thought it was a Jesus movie. She's like, oh, let's go see it.
Yeah, it totally is.
It's the story of Jesus. She just wasn't really considering all of the insane violence and brutality and battles and war that it's depicted over that handful of hours. And again, the number of beheadings,
Yeah.
But anyways, it was a Jesus movie, so it was okay. But I do remember that the scariest scenes for me, the ones that still stick out in my mind, are probably Weathertop, Moria, and Shelob's Lair. Shelob always scared me. Big giant spider. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like an enormous fucking spider that gets your friend? Holy shit.
And she spins webs fast.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I remember the Nazgul scene, like that one of those first ones where all the hobbits jump off the road and are hiding underneath the roots.
Oh, classic.
Yeah, that was like shit's about to get scary, guys. And it was. It was that the shrill that they did was perfect, I think.
Scary. When I first saw The Fellowship of the Ring, I was about 10 years old. Scared the crap out of me. I thought the orcs were just scary as fuck. They're like monsters with British accents. It's fucking terrifying. And honestly, because I was an anxious child, the tension in just some of the scenes in general, just too much for me to handle. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, no, it is super tense, especially when, I think I was 11 or 12 when I first saw it. The ring wraiths also really scared me.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, we're going to talk about this later, but when they invade Bree, it's so creepy, and it's just so well done at night with like the fog rolling in and Howard Shore's score. And I also just want to give a quick shout out to how much I hate the Fellowship of the Ring video game.
Oh, me too.
The doctors never figured out what gave me cancer, but I would not be surprised if the Fellowship of the Ring video game had something to do with it.
You can't disprove it. You know,
that claim cannot be disproven.
you cannot fucking disprove it.
I never made it out of the Shire. The ring wraiths just
Me neither.
always caught me.
Stress-induced
Always.
cancer.
They were so much harder than Farmer Maggot's dogs to distract with the stones.
Yeah, no, and you had hours of gameplay. Sorry, this is
Fuck that game.
too off.
That's
off
a different
topic, but yeah.
episode.
I've never played this game, guys.
It's awful. We should
curious.
We should make content out of it because it's fucking awful.
I do gotta agree though. The scene where the ring wraiths invade Bree at night.
Oh yeah,
that is probably one of like the spookiest horror-esque scenes that I can think of in the film.
yeah. And we're about to
That's
go.
totally-
And we're about to go all film school on that shit. So let's get into a little film 101 here.
Yeah, before we get too deep into it, we want to throw out some terms because some of us might not be too familiar with some of this film stuff since this isn't a film podcast.
Right. So we're going to define a few terms. So first, Lighting. Lighting is how a director uses lights and shadows within the scene to convey certain visual information.
Lighting can dramatically affect the tone of a scene, and horror has been on the forefront of the lighting game since the silent era of film.
Yeah, you really got to check out the German expressionist films from the 1920s if you want to know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm guessing because they don't have all that sound, like they have to convey that information
Visually.
like visually, and so you got to get creative with that.
That's why people always say like film is a visual medium as first and foremost.
So why it started out with a lot of accentuated face acting.
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
accentuated face makeup because
Yeah.
they really want you to see the person go, "Wah!"
Yeah.
You got to tell the story strongly.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
I fucking love silent films, you guys. We should have a silent film night on the Discord server with all our listeners. That'd be fun.
Nobody talks.
Yeah. What? Here's a fun film school term Joe can give us.
Yeah, this is super film schooly, I guess, but it's chiaroscuro.
Chiaroscuro.
It's Italian. It's lighting technique. It originally comes from the Renaissance art movement and combines the Italian words chiaro, meaning clear or bright, and oscuro, meaning obscure or dark. And it refers to the dramatic effect experienced when using contrasting areas of light and dark in a visual piece. So in cinematography, the term refers to low and high contrast lighting, which creates areas of light and dark in films, which goes back to the German expressionist films, which they really play around with shadows and...
Oh yeah, it's
So that's the kind of lighting you see when you see something like moving in and out of shadows, right? Something that's spook like in a bright spot and then it moves back and disappears into the dark kind of
right.
thing.
That's definitely a lighting technique, a lighting trick, right? There's plenty of lighting tricks, and yeah, those
Chiaroscuro.
chiaroscuro is a way to do that. Yeah, a lot of those German dudes, we can't talk about them enough. Check those guys out. Another thing we're going to be talking about, editing. If you don't know what editing is.
Yeah, editing is the chronological sequence in which visual information is displayed. So individual shots are edited together to create scenes. Editing sets the pace of a scene, and also it adds depth to the action.
And then cinematography is just the way the camera moves through the shot. It's one of the number one ways that directors convey feelings and emotions through imagery. And there's a lot of, handheld and just, there's so many different types of way to show that emotion through how the camera itself is moving throughout the scene.
It's a whole art, and it's art within the art.
Yeah, another term we want to throw out is art direction. So the art direction of a film is the overall visual aesthetic of a given scene. So this one is a little more abstract. So to convey this concept, we've got a little excerpt from Wikipedia that we'll have read by Danny.
One of the biggest challenges art directors face is translating desired moods, messages, concepts, and underdeveloped ideas into imagery. In the brainstorming process, art directors, colleagues, and clients explore ways the finished piece or scene could look. At times, the art director is responsible for solidifying the vision of the collective imagination while resolving conflicting agendas and inconsistencies between contributors' ideas.
Nice.
That's an art director, guys.
And art direction, it includes set design, props, makeup, and costumes. And I just have to give a shout out to the chainmail team on Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
There's a clip on YouTube from one of the Fellowship of the Ring, I think extended bonus edition discs.
The one of many.
Yeah, the one of many. And we learn that it takes 3 days and 13,000 individual rings to make one piece of chainmail.
God.
And just in the clip, they've been doing it for, I think they say 18 months. And you can just see that like their sanity is slowly dwindled in those years.
Slipping away.
Yeah, that's a group.
They've literally got to build an army of those things.
Yeah.
Oh, my
So
God.
is that 3 days for one person to make one chainmail?
Or is that for the whole team?
Yeah, I think it's one person.
Okay.
It takes them 3 days and 13,000 rings
That's
for one.
still a lot. That's a slow process.
That's crazy. Another slow in terrible process sometimes is sound design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so sound design is what you hear when you watch any given scene. And it consists of creating, editing, and mixing the sound into the final product.
Yeah, sound design is the hallmark of almost every great horror film. Sound adds so much to the feelings of terror or disgust being conveyed by the director.
And sometimes the lack of sound can be used to great effect in sound design. I always point to No Country for Old Men. And
Oh
it's
my
not,
God. Yep.
It's not technically a horror film, I guess, but there's some scenes that I would describe as horrific
Sure.
with Anton Chigurh when you'll only hear like a crumpled wrapper or you'll hear distant footsteps, and it's more terrifying than if there was a
Orchestral theme? Yeah.
theme. Yeah.
No, there's almost straight up almost no music in that movie, and the only music you do hear is like diegetic, like it comes from in the movie.
Some of those scenes build up a lot of tension. A lot of tension.
Yeah, check that one out if you haven't seen
Like,
it.
you know, Anton Sugar's there somewhere. Where is he with that weird ass fucking shotgun in his cow poker or whatever the fuck it is?
Yeah, and that's made by fellow Minnesotan artists, the Coen brothers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Coen Brothers.
Yeah, we are colleagues with them.
We are colleagues.
I would like to add that that like sound design, the keeping like no music, but just like the sound effects or like footsteps and stuff. That goes the same for video games too. Like,
Yeah.
like video games being an evolution from like I guess
film, yeah.
from film, and in a lot of ways, a lot of games are very very film like.
Yeah, me and Trevor always talk about like film versus video games, and I always say that the video games are a descendant of film.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I would have to agree in some
Yeah.
aspects. That's 100% true.
Yeah,
And like if you're playing horror games like Dead Space or the Evil
Sound
Within,
design.
like sound is very important. Like
Very important.
especially when they take the music away and all you can hear are your footsteps, like crumpling leaves in the forest, like or like things walking around you and screaming. Like you want to be able to hear those things because they could jump out you at any time.
right.
Yeah.
It's part of the overall sensory experience that you have with video games.
You can't have a film or a game for that matter without those things and make it horror.
Yeah,
I would
especially
agree.
for someone who's very sensitive to sound and things. Sound design can really like make or break any given scene or event. Like it's really what makes it hit like the audience. And
Totally.
then Joe mentioned like how the lack of sound can be used to great effect. That just makes me think of the scene in The Return of the King in the Battle of Pelennor Fields where the two Oliphants collide.
Yeah.
And the sound like cuts out for a second as these two massive things come together, just because it's like so overpowering. Like they just cut it out. It's just that scene was always super intense to me.
And full disclosure, all the things we just mentioned, I'm pretty sure all of these they won Oscars for.
Oh, really?
They won 11 Oscars, so they won pretty much for everything except acting. So it's,
Which is
Really?
silly.
Really? Acting?
Because some of
No
the
acting
acting was
nomination.
fantastic.
But man, Andy Serkis really did get shafted out.
Yeah, Andy Serkis has still not been nominated as far as I'm aware.
Fantasy, horror, and sci-fi. Those are all
Shafted.
not loved by the Academy for
Yeah.
acting.
Shafted by the Academy.
All right, guys, shall we get into the horror in the
Yeah.
Fellowship?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's
So,
get into it. The aura.
the aura. The first and foremost, we got to get into those Nazgul sequences. In my opinion, honestly, and I've seen literally thousands of movies, they are some of the scariest movie villains of all time. And the scenes that they are introduced in the film are iconic as fuck. I mean, there's even a South Park episode lampooning one of the shots we're going to analyze in this episode. And it's one of my all-time favorite episodes when they're looking for the porno, remember?
Okay.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a great episode. of
Backdoor
South Park.
Sluts and I.
Backdoor Sluts 9. Yeah.
See, that's one I do know, and not being
Yeah.
a South Park person. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. The gang meets the Nazgul.
Yeah, this is the one that I said earlier was the one that freaked me out.
Yep.
You know, the more you guys talk about the Nazgul stuff, the more it makes me realize the Nazgul stuff in the early parts of the Fellowship probably really were my first exposure to true horror.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
true horror.
It's what a nice way to have to digest that too. Like with the Lord of the Rings, I guess you could say it has several different genres in it.
They did a
Oh,
good
yeah.
job of sort of
So-
easing you into it initially.
Yeah,
So-
and,
Yeah.
and you're not like stuck under that tension for the whole movie, just like for parts of it. So
That's why it's a masterpiece.
yeah, it does a lot of things very well.
Yeah, it's real good, you guys. If you haven't seen it, like, you should check it out.
How did you get this far in the podcast?
Yeah, I love
You
it. I
haven't
wish
seen
I
The
could
Lord of
talk
the
to
Rings.
those people. Yeah. So let's talk about the scene we're talking about. Frodo and Sam have just met up with Pippin and Merry on the road. Y'all remember this, right?
Yes, Farmer Maggot.
Yeah,
You've been into Farmer Maggot's crops.
Yeah. There's a funny little scene with the mushroom and the pile of horse shit. And shortly after, Frodo looks down the road and becomes anxious. The gang get off the road and hide from the Nazgul in the hollow tree. So that's a sequence we're going to be looking at.
Peter Jackson exhibits a textbook tonal shift after the comedic scene and launches into straight-up high-tension horror.
Hell yeah.
So let's break it down. Let's get into the editing aspect of this scene that makes it so horrifying.
Yeah, as the tension builds, Jackson uses a combination of progressively tighter shots with shorter and shorter durations to build a sense of urgency within the viewer.
There's also a lot of use of close-ups during both the scene where Frodo is staring down the road and when the gang are all hiding from the Nazgul, under the hollowed-out tree. Those close-ups allow for the actors to demonstrate the emotions of fear and anxiety on their faces with limited visual distractions. They really let those emotions sink in for the viewer. And they also later serve to convey the intensity with which Frodo is tempted to put on the ring.
And then Jackson switches things up to further build tension as he uses a long take, relatively, of the Nazgul riding into the background of the frame, while the hobbits are tucked beneath the tree in the foreground.
I love that shot. That's like an iconic, so iconic.
I want that as a huge, photo in my house.
Like a giant mural on a wall or something.
That would be cool. But then we go straight back to quick cuts of the close-ups of the hobbits' faces and the bugs crawling and the armored feet and the hands of the Nazgul, just like all the things portraying some kind of dread or disgust.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then he brilliantly uses a slightly longer take to show the struggle not to put on the ring on Frodo's face.
Yeah, really letting that emotion sink in.
Yeah, I love the bugs too because it's like they're just
So gross.
even the bugs are trying to get away from
The
these
Nazgul.
Yeah, even the
Creatures.
bugs are freaked out. That really I really liked that particular. I don't remember if that was in the book, was it?
I don't
that
think
detail?
so. No,
But
it's
that,
cool, though.
That detail with the bugs was a really good visual way to convey the
even nature's disgusted.
the invisible
Yeah.
sense of fear that's always around them. Like, how do you really convey that? That was a great
Great way to do
way
that.
to do that.
Well, yeah, and they're down in the dark, underneath, it's a dirty, gross place to be. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of stuff actually to compact in this scene.
Yes.
It also
It
just
took me a
builds-
while to analyze this.
I bet.
It builds one of those stereotypical moments where someone's trying to hide quietly from something else, but then something's happening that's going to make them freak out.
Mm-hmm.
Super tense.
He also uses a lot of time distortion editing,
Yes.
which many filmmakers use this technique to heighten the tension or drama of a given scene. So you basically just use editing tricks to lengthen the amount of time that passes on the screen, or the amount of time that passes on the screen is greater than what it would be in real life.
Right.
Gotcha. So you're seeing time slowed down to an extent.
And we've all experienced you're gonna give a big speech and it's like time stops as you walk up to
Right.
the stage.
It's imitating that.
Yeah, it feels like there's 20 years before you even open your
Yeah.
mouth and say anything, but you've only been up there for 30 seconds.
Yep.
Just some quick examples of this that are some quick famous examples is the train station shootout in The Untouchables, the Odessa staircase, and Sergei Eisenstein's The Battleship Potemkin, which is actually The Untouchables
Is actually based off of that. Yep.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then the staircase standoff in Hitchcock's Notorious.
Oh, my favorite Hitchcock movie. Had to mention it, guys.
The notorious film.
Yeah, in the horror films, slasher films use this to great effect. It's used prominently in John Carpenter's classic Halloween from 1978, which is the quintessential slasher film.
That is a great classic.
Yeah. You ever wonder how slashers will chase you forever and the scene will last forever while they're just slowly walking?
Yeah, the main character is always running as fast as they can and falling over, and it seems like every time they turn around,
Yep.
they're just slowly lugging along, but they're not too far behind you.
Yep. That's time distortion editing, friends.
Terrifying.
And well,
It makes
Jackson,
it seem like they don't even have to exert any effort, and they're going to get you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it adds to that feeling of helplessness.
Mm-hmm.
And Jackson uses this time distorted editing to make the scene in the hollowed out tree seem to last forever.
Oh, yeah. It lasts forever.
It uses half motion to not only draw out the scene, but to show Frodo losing his grip on reality and being seduced by the ring.
Yeah, that same technique is used during the scene where the Nazgul are chasing the hobbits down on their way to Buckleberry Ferry.
And then getting into the sound design of the scene, the sound design does a lot of work to build the tension in the scene. So at first you hear the chirping of the birds and other forest noises laid over a minimal score. And then as the score builds, the sounds of the birds are drowned out by the breathy screech of the Nazgul coming down the road. And then Frodo's tempted to put on the ring, and then you can hear the voice of Sauron growing louder and louder, and as he gets closer to putting the ring on. And then the tension of the scene is cut when all the sound cuts out as Frodo puts away the ring.
I can ask a question.
Yeah.
Do any of us know what they used to make the sound of the Nazgul?
Oh, like how they created that sound?
Yeah, that screeching sound.
Whatever the Foley went.
All I know is that I had a brass sink in my basement that was all fucking corroded. And when you opened the valve, it sounded like that. Just like that. Yeah, it was awful.
It's probably honestly like a combination of like 30 dolphins and 40 roaring tigers and just a whole host of creatures.
Yeah, they do
That's
some...
kind of funny. That's usually how they
Isn't
do
that kind of like, I think that's what they did Chewbacca, right?
Or like that.
They had like a lion and a couple of other creatures. They like
There's
mixed the
overlap.
sounds together.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Nazgul screech is one of the things that I thought got carried over, like interpreted perfectly from the book. Because in the book, I think they described the Nazgul screeches as basically like screams of death or something like that.
Yeah, like an inhuman scream type thing.
I mean, if
An inhuman, like deathly whale that trails off, and they like communicated over long distances. I think they hit it very, like, right on the nail.
Yeah.
If I heard that on a dark street, I'd be scared.
Yeah.
I'd be very scared.
Yeah. And then, the sound of the bag being thrown and the Nazgul screeching is what breaks the silence.
The mushroom bag.
The mushroom bag. Yeah, so the Foley in this scene is also just fantastic. The sound of the horse snorting and stomping its feet. The sound of the Nazgul's boots hitting the ground as he dismounts.
Yeah.
That scene, that's
The
a sound.
clanging of the armor.
Yep.
Yeah, very weighty. Like, this is a creature you don't want to fuck with.
Yeah, totally.
Just you guys describing this is like I can picture, like I can hear it vividly.
Yeah.
It's impactful.
It even makes sounds when the bugs and worms wriggle
like the
out.
wriggling sounds.
Creepy crawly sounds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what a contrast to the clanking of the armor and stuff.
Yeah. So we called that Foley. So let's talk about the art of Foley for a second. One of the things you will learn if you ever make a film is that sound is a fucking bitch. And I hate it so fucking much. I like to make silent movies, literally for that reason. I'm not even kidding you. Most of the sounds we hear in film are actually recreated by Foley artists by doing any number of goofy things to create the perfect sound for the scene.
Yeah, when they say goofy, they really do mean goofy shit.
Yeah, like real goofy shit. The roar of the Balrog is actually the sound of a cinder block being dragged across the floor and then slowed down.
Yeah, I just want to echo that, I hate sound. If you've ever made a movie and been like, what's that humming sound? And then you have to unplug like 20 different electronics in the apartment to try to figure out what's making that humming. Anyways, it
was the fridge.
Yeah, something like that.
Yep.
And the cinematography in this scene is iconic. 2 shots of note are used to convey the terror of this scene. One of the famous ones it's called the dolly zoom.
Love this.
Everyone's probably seen this at some point.
Oh yeah, very famous.
Or you could call it Hitchcock shot, vertigo shot, Jaws effect, Zolly shot. It's used to superb effect when Frodo looks down the road and the woods around him distort in an eerie fashion, giving us the impression that something wicked this way comes.
Oh yeah, you know something's coming.
The Bradbury reference.
Yeah.
So the anatomy of a Zolly shot. A dolly is basically just a cart with wheels, and you mount the camera to the dolly, and then there are these slightly raised tracks that the dolly goes on. So you're able to get a super smooth shot from it called a tracking shot. But to get the dolly zoom effect, you either zoom in or out while tracking forwards or backwards. So in Jaws, for example, they zoom out while tracking the camera in to get the effect. And in The Fellowship of the Ring, they do it the opposite way.
Boom. See, that's why you paid all that money for that degree, Joe.
I could have just gone on Wikipedia, but
But no.
It's a great description of what's happening, but like it's such an unnatural looking.
Oh, it looks so
movement
weird.
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, okay, this is actually just a practical effect, but it's really like showing it what you can do with the
I feel like
environment.
I feel like it's frequently used to show characters shock or horror.
Or
That's
yeah,
something.
because it's when
It's
you get
always
that
like-
tunnel vision shit,
Yeah,
you know.
it's always like the camera's zooming in on their face,
Yeah.
but at the same time, the background behind them is like falling away really fast. It's
And it was invented or at least made popular by Alfred Hitchcock in the movie Vertigo, which features that
I love it.
prevalently.
The name kind of sounds like it. Like you could use that same effect vertically, right?
Well, he it's about a guy that's afraid of heights.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying like with the Zolly shot, you could do it up and down too, and it would be
Oh yeah, same thing. Yep.
here comes the ground.
Yeah, that would be weird.
That'd be horrifying.
Yeah.
So let's get into the next most iconic shot here. We're gonna dissect a little bit the hollowed out tree. That whole scene. This is one of the most iconic shots of the entire series.
So this is when the Nazgul is looming above the cowering hobbits, and it's just almost the perfect visual representation of Tolkien's idea that evil is ever present and we are forever in its shadow.
Yeah, dog.
The hobbits are cowering beneath the roots of the tree, and the shot is from a very low angle with the camera pointed damn near vertical, and this angle is an extreme Dutch angle, as they say, lending an element of surrealness to the shot.
Yeah, a word on the Dutch angle. Dutch angles are when the camera is tilted on its side, one way or the other, making the planes of the ground, like the lines you're seeing in, of the ground or structures, pass through the shot at askew angles, which, if you remember from geometry, is not perpendicular or parallel, right? At an askew angle.
Yeah, so when a shot looks like it's purposely kind of crooked, almost.
Right, it is, yeah. In fact, purposely crooked. And this gives the shot a surreal nature and subconsciously makes the viewer feel uneasy and disoriented.
So Dutch angles are most prominently used in the horror genre. It was popularized in the silent era, especially by our German expressionist friends in the 1920s.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is really crazy the influence that German expressionism has had on just horror, and I mean even film in general.
Oh god, yeah. My two favorite genres, film noir and horror, are both direct descendants of German expressionism.
Peter Jackson and Sam Raimi both love that, like, it's a Dutch angle, but they put it in motion, so the camera will almost like crookedly fly towards someone's face or away from them, and it's a really effective way to show horror.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, Dutch angles are fucking cool. I fucking love them. Let's talk about the attack on Bree. You guys remember this? This is another Nazgul sequence, right?
I'm excited about it. After you brought this up earlier, I've been excited about this.
It's one of the most horrifying scenes.
Because I can't believe I forgot about it, but it really is one of the spookiest, scariest scenes.
Yeah, if you can watch the scene, like, and just show it out of context and be like, this is from a horror film, they'd be like, yeah, that shit must be scary. That must be a scary-ass horror film. But this is from a fantasy adventure film.
I really like the layering of scenes that comes up to this point too, because like that's that one we just talked about is not that long ago.
No, it's very quick in succession.
So, yeah, you get like a moment of peace and everybody's happy and they have it in pints, and then
Peter Jackson, they literally inject meth into the timeline of the Lord of the Rings. Like, they hype that shit up. They make it Hollywood fast, you know?
Yeah, it's just, I really like it. The pacing is great.
Yeah, the pacing of The Lord of the Rings is perfect, in my opinion.
Pacing is wonderful.
Yeah.
So the attack on Bree. So this is when the Nazgul force their way into Bree, and they ride through the streets searching for the hobbits, and then they even eventually enter the Inn of the Prancing Pony, and they attempt to kill the hobbits in their sleep. But, as we know, they fail to do so.
Right.
I always felt bad for the gatekeeper guy.
I know, he got
Butterbur?
smushed.
No, the gatekeeper that gets smushed. I'm sorry, I forgot about
smushed.
it. Yeah, poor guy. He was just doing his job.
That was always very alarming to me as a child when the gatekeeper got smushed.
Yeah.
So we assume he dies there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk
Yeah.
about sound design. I think the crunching sound it made,
Yeah.
like, yeah,
As the horses rode
Yeah.
rode over his ass.
9
Yeah.
horses.
Yeah, 9 horses.
Right over the top
Is
of
that
you.
that's the Nazgul's first casualty run
I think in the film.
in the film?
I think
well,
so.
Yeah, in the film.
Oh no, the first casualty in the film is that hobbit
With the
holding
lantern,
the lamp.
yeah. Yeah,
Oh.
they got him good.
Oh, I didn't actually think he got murdered by them.
It's off screen, but it's implied.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, kill count 2.
Yeah. Let's talk about the art direction a little bit. This scene is a textbook example of horror atmosphere. The use of fog is something that goes all the way back to the earliest days of the horror genre. The old Universal Monster movies, some of my favorite movies friggin' ever. I've actually showed my nephew almost all of them.
Yeah,
he's 5 and he loves them.
He's fallen in love with all the old classics.
Yeah. The old Universal Monster movies use fog a shitload on set to create the atmosphere of horror in their scenes. Notable example, I think the best example, one of my least favorite of the films, but best example of fog, The Wolfman, 1941.
Honestly, fog would be that makes a lot of sense why they'd use it in horror because
Scary.
well, it's scary, but it also doesn't have to be like really like a thick fog. It can be kind of like it can transition.
Well, it also visually represents the unknown or the obscured.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, you can like slowly unveil something or cover it up, and
Yeah.
it's like
conceals things. Yeah.
it's almost like using your light and darkness, like when we get the lighting. But,
Chiaroscuro.
yeah,
Yeah, it's all going back to the Renaissance.
Chiaroscuro.
Chiaroscuro.
It also just looks really beautiful in black and white.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I love black and white.
oh yeah,
movies.
yeah, because fog is. I mean, it's almost just like smoke, and if you have black and
Mhm.
white, like the way that light
Smoke
hits
looks
it is
off.
gonna,
Yeah.
it's gonna make it pop.
Well, yeah, speaking of colors, the color palette specifically of this scene, too, while we're talking about art direction.
Yeah.
There's a complete lack of warm colors in this scene, and the palette is almost all cool blues and greens, which helps to set the atmosphere of like a cold and spooky night.
Right. Yeah, it's a bone-chilling night.
It almost adds to their spectral nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Another thing they do to add to that spectral nature, I can't remember if I added this in here or not, but I noticed it while I was analyzing these films. They almost always use slow-mo or half motion when the Nazgul move around
Mm-hmm.
to kind of give them a ghost-like
Like a slow
quality.
and smooth quality.
Yeah, it's really effective.
And every time they move, they don't really step, they like float. They
They
just kind of
float.
like move forward.
Yep.
Yeah, they're almost kind of ghosts.
Yep.
Let's touch on the cinematography of this scene.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool cinematography in this scene.
Totally.
One of the most interesting shots, I guess, is that really stands out is the overhead shot of the Nazgul entering the prancing pony. The camera's directly overhead, shooting straight down, and we can see them move in through the door one by one. And I just remember how one of them is horrifying enough, and then you just see
All
like a
9 of
single,
them?
single
Yeah.
file line of just all of them coming in. And yeah, it really just shows you that they're gonna find you. You're not safe, even if you think you are.
All of them are going to find you.
Yeah, and I noticed while doing this that this is reminiscent of one of my other favorite films and one of my favorite shots in that film, Taxi Driver, Martin Scorsese, 1976, right? The when they're showing the aftermath of the giant, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a giant
Yeah, spoilers.
violent conflict at the end, and it shows the aftermath, and it's a tracking shot straight down from the ceiling. Similar shot to this.
I love the shot of Butterbur cowering as they walk in.
Yes.
Single file
Yes.
is also just because that would be all of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think as a child, that shot in particular of the grown
A grown-up.
innkeeper, the
Yeah.
grown barkeeper cowering behind the wall
Yeah.
in his nightie,
Well-
with them like streaming by with the swords perfectly in shot behind
Yeah.
him. That
It-
was one of the spookiest things to me.
And we were talking about this while we were doing review. This is Barlam and Butterbur. He's the bartender at the Prancing Pony, which probably
In
has
Brie.
in Brie, which probably has some pretty rough and tumble type
He sees all
characters.
sorts of folks. He gets
Yeah.
like Easterlings, dwarves,
I'm sure. Yeah,
rangers,
dwarves, yeah.
men, hobbits.
All of them come through Brie.
Drunken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are getting wasted, right? And yeah, and dude, Like he doesn't scare easy, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's got shit to do. He's not gonna let shit scare him.
Yeah, he doesn't even respect Aragorn.
No, he's not even intimidated by Aragorn. He
No.
just thinks he's some ruffian.
Yeah,
The only people I've ever seen Butterbur be intimidated by are
Gandalf.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gandalf
Okay.
and the Nazgul.
And the
Okay.
Nazgul,
He is
yeah.
legitimately scared of Gandalf.
But-
oh yeah, he's so afraid of Gandalf.
Isn't he the one who forgot to give the letter?
Yes.
Yes.
But he got that from Gandalf.
Yes.
He's
so
got a bar to run.
He still is like,
he's got shit to do.
if Gandalf's not around, I don't gotta
Yeah.
do anything.
Out of sight, out of mind, I guess.
Yeah, so this super iconic shot that we all love it's an end-weighted shot with Butterbur on the right of the shot and the Nazgul pass out of focus on the left.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the most like classic horror shots that I can think of right there in the trilogy. I love that one.
Oh yeah.
But another one of the creepiest shots is when the Nazgul finally enter the room where they believe the hobbits are sleeping.
Yeah, this is a crane shot that moves forward through the room and then does a nearly 180-degree pan to show the Nazgul standing with swords drawn in the shadows. Joe, if he continued to do that pan, what would he be breaking? The 180-degree rule.
180-degree rule.
Yeah. Film school shit.
The world would implode and everything would.
Oh yeah, you're gonna disorient your viewers. Don't break that rule.
What's the rule? You never turn the camera 180 degrees.
You never cross an imaginary 180-degree line with the perspective with which you're shooting. Because if you do that, so actually Peter Jackson kind of breaks that rule to do that scene where Gollum is talking to himself.
Oh yeah.
So that's how he creates
I
that
see.
by breaking that rule.
Interesting. Okay.
So it feels like wrong almost when he's having that conversation with himself.
Yep.
Hmm.
So also let's talk about lighting. This is another thing I love about the Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah, so Jackson uses what is called low-key lighting frequently, and low-key lighting is when the light is basically directly overhead.
So yeah, there's a 3-point lighting structure. The key light is the one right above you.
Oh, that kind of makes me think of skylights in like games, like open world games, because there's always a light in the scene, and it's the sun typically.
Specifically, horror and like noir stuff are prime examples of using that low-key lighting.
Yeah.
You get good shadows and stuff.
Yep, and those German expressionist filmmakers that we talk about so much, after the fall of the Weimar Republic, they made their way to the US and the UK to create gothic horror and film noir genres. So look at that. Low-key lighting making its way to America and the UK.
Yeah, so in this scene specifically, the low-key lighting in the Hobbit's room where they're sleeping, this allows the Nazgul to sort of like blend into that dark background, blend into those shadows, and then they like float forward and are revealed in that light in the foreground.
Yeah, so spooky.
Does the low part mean anything in particular?
Just like dimmer
Dimmer?
than normal.
The light is
Yeah.
actually dim as well. It's not only the key light right above, but it's dim. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying? Okay.
exactly. Yep. So there's high key lighting as well. Like if you're trying to shoot like a scene where somebody's in heaven or dead,
Sure.
you would use real high key lighting. Right.
Oh yeah, so like you could see like the cone of light in a way, like that. Kind
That
of
would be
thing.
a real high key lighting. Yep.
Yeah.
Speaking directly
Yeah.
to Jesus.
Because there's
Yeah.
what are the 3 points of lighting? It's fill lighting, key lighting, and what backlighting? I think I can't remember the third one. There's a couple different terms for it.
backlight,
Yeah. But yeah, let's also talk about the editing because this scene is all about editing. as
Oh
well.
yeah, the little editing trick they use in this one's great.
One of the things with the editing is the movement of the Nazgul. He uses half motion almost every time the Nazgul are shown moving, which gives them a ghostly quality, which adds to their spookiness.
Oh yeah.
And he achieves this by shooting at a slightly higher frame rate and then slowing down the film.
Yeah, that's how you get
so
slow
you
motion.
Don't get like the choppy. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah. It's often used in stylized action films to create a more drawn-out action sequence.
Shout out to Zack Snyder.
Zack Snyder.
Huge lover of half motion and slow mo.
Oh yeah, his famous slow-mo shots in all of his movies.
Yeah, we used to clown on Zack Snyder so hard
Yeah,
back in
yeah.
Director of Guardians of Gahul.
That's my favorite of his
Famously.
other than Dawn of the Dead remake. That's my favorite Zack Snyder movie. I love Guardians of Gahul. It rules.
That's a good movie.
It's anti-war as fuck. Check it out.
So something that is also noteworthy about this scene is the use of jump cuts to fake out the viewer into thinking that the hobbits are actually about to be slaughtered in their sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not.
Yeah, Jackson starts with a high-angle shot of the Nazgul taking position around the beds. There are close-ups of their swords being raised to stab down.
That's so tense.
Yeah, the light. I love the lighting that they do on the swords too, because it looks to me like moonlight, like on the blades. Like you can see the blade in the moonlight. That's what I always interpreted it as.
Just the blades slowly move up into shot just in time for you to see the tips stop right in the frame, and you're like, oh,
the scene is pretty much just the moonlight, isn't it? Do they actually still have any candles or anything's on?
I think it's like implied moonlight. Yeah, I don't think there's...
It's all light coming in from the window outside.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we see Sam's face as he's trying to sleep, and we don't actually know it, but it's a jump cut as the blades go down, and this fakes the viewers out and makes for a good pseudo scare.
Yeah, I always thought that was real cool when I was a kid. That scene.
Yeah, they do it's a good job. It does like get you for a second.
It really does, especially the sound it makes when the swords go in. It makes like a shink, and then everybody's eyes wakes up. Yeah, the sound. Let's talk about the sound design of this scene.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about the sound design because it is great.
So other than the score, there is a notable lack of sound in this sequence, and the only sound that can be heard initially are the sound of the horses of the Nazgul galloping in debris.
Yeah, once dismounted, they move almost completely silently. And the silence is only broken by the sound of the blades stabbing viciously into the feather beds.
Yeah, this lack of sound makes a scene really tense and subconsciously gives the viewer a sense of dread and uneasiness.
Yes, I would certainly say so. Child me sitting in the theater watching that scene was on the edge of my seat.
Oh, yeah.
Howard Shore's score is so good in that scene, too.
Oh, it goes so hard, yeah.
Dark and spooky.
Those
like low string notes, they're just like single. They're awesome.
You know what else is dark and spooky?
Oh, you stole my segue. I was going to do it.
The Moria sequence.
The Moria sequences.
Yes.
So one of the things we want to talk here about is the similarities to horror films of the past / horror tradition, right? And so these sequences are really in the tradition of the creature feature, believe it or not.
Yeah, creature feature just being a type of film, horror films from back in the day that featured monsters.
Like Godzilla?
Godzilla is more a kaiju movie, but it is especially the first one is a creature feature, right?
Kaiju movies probably fall under creature feature.
Yeah, it's probably technically a creature feature
genre.
Yeah, like so we'll talk about some creature features here in a second.
But yeah, horror films have had monsters featured in them since the early days of horror, and that's how we came to the term creature feature for these types of films. And it really had its heyday back in the 1950s.
Yeah, the 50s were all about the creature feature, and there's some really good ones and some really fucking bad ones.
Yeah, in these films, the main aspect of horror is centered around a creature, either real or fictitious, and a lot of the times the creature is misunderstood.
Yes.
And you actually end up having a deep love of the creature. Sometimes even, like, Creature from Black Lagoon is awesome, even though he's a murderous monster.
I love the creature from the Black Lagoon. He did nothing wrong.
Yeah, no, he's just living his life. I mean,
just a creature.
Yeah.
But we know Peter Jackson's a huge fan of creature features. Last year when we talked about all his early horror movies, I mean, there's creatures in those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what one of my favorite creature features is? I made you guys watch it last year for Halloween, I think. Fucking Alligator. I love Alligator. I think it's a perfect creature feature.
Yeah, Alligator's a good movie.
Check it out.
Perfect is a strong word, but I'll take
You know
your
what?
I'll
Fuck
take
you,
no,
Joel.
I'll take your word. I've never seen it.
It's got Robert Forster in it. You watched it with me.
Did I?
Yeah, it's about the giant alligator that...
Oh, that lives outside that guy's like shop or whatever.
Well, remember
his restaurant.
No, that's Eaten Alive, Toby Hooper.
Oh,
I make
God
Joel
damn it.
watch so many horror movies. We'll talk about it later, Joel.
Okay. Save it for the horror podcast.
Yeah, save it for the horror podcast. Should we talk about that right now? Take a second?
Yeah.
So me and Joe have finally decided that we're going to go ahead and start that horror podcast we've been talking about.
Yeah, it only took us several years.
Yeah, a good 5 years. But we're going to... So that's coming up in the future. We're getting the wheels turning on that finally. So check that out soon.
Yeah, no, that'll be fun. I'm excited.
Hell yeah. I think you guys will like it.
Do you guys have a name for it?
we don't know yet.
Work in progress. All
Yeah.
right.
TBD.
Untitled project.
Yeah.
To be determined.
Yes. So let's check out these creature features. These creature featurettes, I guess.
Featurettes,
little
yeah.
Featurettes.
We've
you
got
could call
three.
them
Yeah. We've got three specifically.
from this Moria sequence. So the three main creatures in the Moria sequence would probably be the Watcher in the water, right off the bat in the beginning. Then, of course, there's the Troll during the first fight. And then, of course, you got capping things off with the Balrog, Durin's Bane.
Does the Watcher in the water have a creature name, or is it just that's just what it's known
That's just
as?
they don't.
That's
they
just what they
actually-
call it,
They
really?
actually in the book they don't even know if it was one or many.
Or mini creatures, yeah. It might be a
Oh.
colony of...
It's just a bunch
Tentacles.
of tentacles came out of the
Yeah.
water. They don't know if it was one or many. In the movie, they interpret it as one giant monstrous thing.
Yeah, but it is...
But it is generally also
ambiguous.
named the Watcher in the water, not the Watchers. So I guess it's
Yeah.
sort of implied that it's a one thing. But
You never know.
I mean, if it was a hive mind in a way, it could be one thing.
I guess you're right.
I suppose.
The creature now is way more creepy to me. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gross, right? But Peter Jackson uses his creature feature chops to create horror and disgust in the viewer in all of these sequences. So let's talk about... We're going to do this a little bit out of order here, but let's talk about the Balrog first.
Yeah, I love the Balrog.
Yes. So let's take a look at how Peter Jackson uses the lessons learned from some of the great creature features. Let's talk about the lead up of the Balrog.
Yeah, so the lesson learned by Jaws and an alien here is that you slowly reveal your creature, you use limited visual information, and you hold that off until the big reveal.
Right. You don't show the thing until very far into the movie, right? So the Balrog, the first information we have about the Balrog is not what it looks like, it's what it sounds like.
Yeah. That low growling, right?
Yeah.
So the Fellowship are surrounded by orcs when they hear that sound, and this is when we get a wide shot of the orcs all getting scared and starting to clear off.
In the background of the frame, we can see a tinge of red and orange colors emerging. And this is a stark contrast to the color palette of all the other Moria scenes that we've had so far. Because they've been mostly cool colors. It's dark there. It's, green and blues and some muted warm colors.
Yeah, even the flames I noticed when I was watching this, the color of the flames is muted. It's like whited out.
Yeah.
The light from Gandalf is like a bluey white,
Mm-hmm.
not a warm
It's
white.
not a warm color.
I bet you they just took out some of the color saturation. That would be...
Well, this was one of the first films to use color correction technology, actually.
Oh, fun
really?
fact.
Yeah, fun fact.
Yeah, I bet that had some depth then.
It's also so effective because there's like thousands of goblins, and whatever is coming terrifies them enough that they all flee.
Yeah.
So it's like a really effective way to show that
Oh, yeah.
you thought this was bad? Just wait.
Yeah,
just wait.
It's
Just
coming,
fucking
man.
wait. We then follow with a combination of close-ups and mid-shots of the Fellowship as they all stand in confused, bombastic terror.
Yeah, just standing there all of a sudden alone.
Yeah, the sound is heard again, and then the warm colors on the palette become more pronounced as the creature presumably moves toward them.
This is when we get that epic close-up of Gandalf. And we get to see some of his genuine terror and worry on his face.
Oh, yeah.
That's also very concerning. Like if you see Gandalf
Oh,
looking,
Yeah.
because he didn't look that concerned with all these goblins, but now
Yeah, even when he couldn't remember which way to go, he wasn't terribly concerned about it. He was just trying to remember. Now he's straight up worried.
Yeah, and he remembers it he's like a demon of the ancient world. And then they cut to this mid shot because that's the close up. And then they cut to a mid shot from off to the side, and he says, "Run." And then they all fucking run, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a jarring, Gandalf coming to terms we need to get the fuck out of here right now.
Well, if Gandalf is telling you to run, that shit's hitting the fan. You run
Yeah.
when Gandalf tells you to run.
And you can tell by the close-ups after Gandalf says run, the close-ups that they do show of the Fellowship are let's get the fuck out of here.
Everybody's very concerned that Gandalf is concerned.
Yeah. And then there's actually a kind of weird chase scene that I'm not a huge fan of, but it kind of breaks the tension. But we're not going to launch into that scene because it's not really horror. It's more like a parkour scene.
Parkour.
Parkour's
Stairs.
probably being generous. But
Yeah.
Stairs. Parkour.
It's just more walking. There's a lot of walking in the Lord of the Rings.
A lot of walking.
Even during intense, scenes, there's just some walking. There has to be.
Sometimes the
stylized
walking
walking.
is
Yeah.
Sometimes the walking is intense. They got to walk down fiery stairs. Oh no! But this is when we get to the big reveal of this scene. So as the chase scene ends and we see the lower levels are on fire, there is a long shot of Gandalf standing in front of the flame, pressuring the Fellowship to go on, and he's saying, "Fly, fly, go across the bridge." And this is when the company passes. and PJ cuts to a close-up of Gandalf's face as he stares into the flames and hears that roaring sound again.
Then we get a long shot of Gandalf in front of the flames in the foreground. The camera finally pulls up to see the Balrog emerge from the flames. And we see his full body before a slight pan, and a zoom brings us into a close-up of the Balrog roaring. So he's just like...
Right in his face.
Epic.
Just whoosh.
Yeah.
And
He's right in your face, right away.
This is very reminiscent of the big reveal of the shark in Jaws, which is one of my favorite horror movies.
Movies
I
ever,
guess
dude.
You can call it horror. Well, yeah, movies ever, but yeah.
It's
Oh,
a creature
yeah.
feature.
Oh, yeah. No, it's horror, 100%. I'll fight anybody that says it's not. All
I'll
right.
fight. I'll
Write
fight you.
email us.
But in that, you see the creature emerging from the background, followed by a close-up of Roy Schneider's terrified face.
Yeah, and then he says what does he say?
We're going to need a bigger boat.
Exactly.
Oh, you took the line. I was pausing for a second.
Oh,
he was
fuck,
he
I'm
was
so
pausing for
sorry.
dramatic effect. Damn it.
1,000 men went out.
Yeah. Joe could do the whole script. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about let's jump back a little bit here and talk about the Chamber of Mazarbul.
That's a fun word.
Yes, the Chamber of
Mazarbul.
Mazarbul.
So the Fellowship have just entered the Tomb of Balin, and they see that the place is totally trashed, and there are dead dwarves everywhere. Gandalf then picks up a book and starts to read. Just, why not?
Why not?
And he reads the last entry in the book, because Gandalf likes to skip to the end, and it makes the Fellowship uneasy. Pippin knocks a corpse down a hole, makes a lot of racket. They begin to hear drums. So the Fellowship bar the door and prepare for a fight. They really set the alarm off.
Yeah.
They brought the guards.
Yeah, so that's the scene we're going to be looking at. This scene is all about building tension. Peter Jackson uses several techniques that build off one another to create this tension.
Let's start by talking about the editing. So beginning with Gandalf reading the book, we have a lot of individual close-ups of the Fellowship listening to Gandalf as he reads the book out loud. This gives us a sense that the Fellowship are trying to take in their own surroundings and assess their situation. There are also close-ups of Gandalf reading the book and slowly becoming more and more concerned. And the close-up shots, the durations of them, they get shorter and shorter, giving a sense that the worry is increasing amongst the characters.
It's actually incredible that you can convey that much information just with the pacing of your editing.
Yeah, this is why it's my favorite art, Trevor. It's so fucking
understand,
wild.
yeah.
The shit you can do with just visual information, and it's wild.
Right, well, my initial exposure to a lot of this stuff is games, like at
Mhm.
least for a place of study. So like
Yeah.
I learned film stuff through video games.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to just be like, oh yeah, I've experienced that.
Yeah, in game design, it's fucking wild, man. That's why we're friends, because we have similar arts.
You can riff.
Yeah, dude.
He does a good job too at because this is foreshadowed way before where Gandalf does not want to come here to Moria.
Right, yeah.
And so this
Mhm.
whole
Aragorn does not either.
yeah, so this whole time you're kind of like something's probably not right here, and then they get into the tomb, and you're like,
Oh.
yeah, this is not good.
Yeah, dude, did you know? Like, so in the book, Aragorn says that he's been through the mines of Moria once. He does not ever want to go back, and he doesn't want to talk about it. That's what he says. Like he's just like, it's not
And he's
cool.
done all sorts of shit.
Yeah, and he's
What-
been everywhere.
If he doesn't want to talk about it, like what the fuck happened?
Yeah, he'll talk about Paths of the Dead, no problem. He'll
Yeah.
tell you about that, but
The
you
dead
know.
men of Dunharrow. Yeah,
Yeah.
he'll tell you the time he convened with a bunch of fucking ghosts. But
By the
only
time
for-
I snuck through Moria, fuck that.
fuck that,
that shit's
shit.
too scary.
Too scary.
That would not make this movie PG-13.
Yeah, but it is PG-13
But it is.
for a reason. Let's talk about sound design a little bit.
The sound design does a ton for this scene. One of the worst sounds is when that armored corpse falls down
Oh,
the
God.
mine, and all you just
Oh.
hear, everything is so silent in the mine, and you just hear this loud reverb and echo, and it's just instantly gave away their position. And then when those drums come in, it just feels terrifying.
Even though they're so soft at first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then it just builds, and it has a similar cadence to a racing human heart.
Yeah, you can kind of, your
Yeah.
heart kind of matches the rate of it, when, it's wild.
Yeah.
It's nuts to think that they were so, like, that was so loud, because Moria's enormous, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so that would echo for so long.
And that sound design was wild. Like the reverb on the...
Yeah.
You could hear it.
It felt like it went on forever.
It felt like it went on forever.
Like, I mean, it alerted both the orcs, and that had to have alerted the Balrog, right?
Oh, you'd think so. Yeah, he just
Right.
came late to the party.
So, do the orcs not know the Balrog is in there? I mean,
Oh, they know.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
But so they play drums. That's
I don't know. They're not the smartest, you know.
I guess.
I wonder, could the Balrog tell that Gandalf was there? And that
He could
roused him?
he could probably sense Gandalf. Honestly, I would
Maybe.
assume
Oh, like
that
maybe he
is such a magical presence. He would be able to, you know,
like maybe the
latch onto.
Balrog doesn't actually give a damn about the orcs, but it's because Gandalf.
Oh, he definitely doesn't.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
he definitely doesn't. No, because the orc is like, or the Balrog is like neutral in this whole conflict. It doesn't even like Sauron, you know.
Yeah,
Like,
it doesn't really like anybody. The orcs just kind of learned to live around it.
yeah, they
They
coexist with it.
Yeah, they've learned a weird way to coexist with it. Like if they don't bother it, they know they can kind of go about their shit and
Yeah.
just avoid it and leave it in its hole. But then somebody went and threw some shit down a well and
Yep.
woke it up.
Yep.
And then they had a big, like, good Maiar with them to fire up this Balrog.
Yeah, and yeah, Howard Shore's score goes
go.
fucking hard here.
Mm-hmm.
It gets faster and more frantic as the durations of the shots get shorter and shorter, and it creates a sense of what I would call straight up panic.
Yeah. It goes from tension to panic.
Like real quick. Yeah, let's talk about the art direction. We got to throw out a French film term here.
I'll let you say it because
Ooh.
I'm not even going to attempt.
Can I try before you try?
Go ahead.
Is it? That's probably just totally wrong. Is it mise en scene?
It's mise en scène.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
It's don't do French.
I believe it means what is in the shot or what is in the scene or something like that. But it is literally what is in the scene. So it's like the first thing about the set design of the chamber is that it's absolutely fucking wrecked, right? There's debris everywhere. There's stones strewn around. There's bodies of dead dwarves, right?
Well, and there's like cobwebs and dust and shit.
Mhm, yep, that's all mise en
Like,
scène.
it gives
right?
you, it gives you that sense of age and like how
Yep.
long everything's been there.
Yeah, and also the just for the prop design, also for art direction, the design of that book is fucking fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way it's got that slash through it.
And we have like proof of this because it is ripped straight from the text, and it even resembles the drawings of the pages of the book that we saw that Tolkien did himself at the Haggerty Museum last year.
Yeah, Tolkien actually drew out a picture of what this page looked like with the writing on the page and the page being all degraded and fucked
Yeah,
up. And
when we were writing this, I showed that to Joe. It was pretty wild, right, Joe?
Yeah, no, it looked pretty much identical to what's in the film.
Yeah, it's wild.
Also, I love how in the book it just scrawls out like whoever was writing that was like dying as they were writing
Yeah.
it.
In the book, it says that it switched. He switched to like Elvish script,
Elvish
right
script.
at the end to write
that
faster.
was Nori, wasn't it?
Ori or Nori, one of the two.
One of those.
Yeah, Ori. I'm pretty sure it was Ori. But yeah, they switched to Elvish because it's faster.
Faster, really.
Apparently,
You're kind of like switching to cursive.
yeah, it's like switching to
You
cursive.
don't,
Yes.
you don't got to pick up your writing tinsel. Just,
Yeah,
it just kinda
Dwarvish has
flows.
it's all straight lines and yeah.
Dwarvish is very hard, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Using the Kurth runes is very hard. Tengwar is a lot more swoopy and
Yeah. All right, guys, let's get into the horror in the Two Towers. We're going to talk about a really cool scene, not necessarily a horror scene, but so inspired by scenes of horror and so thick with it that we had to talk about it. And this is the exorcism of Theoden.
Yes. And the funny thing is, when I was first reading over this outline, I read that and it dawned on me. I had never really imagined that scene with Theoden as being like an exorcism scene.
Oh, yeah,
it
totally.
never really occurred to me before, but it totally is.
Yeah, totally.
100%.
100%.
I'm in the same boat as you, Joel. When you guys first said that, I was like, actually, that
It has
kind of is.
all of the classic tropes of an
Oh,
exorcism.
yeah.
The only thing, you just swap out his staff for like a crucifix and you pretty much
Yeah.
got the power of Christ compels you. Like,
Yeah, we're about to get into that shit right now. This scene is not, like we said, particularly horror per se, but it is so heavily inspired by one horror film in particular. And this is a moment here where we're going to be very frank with you. Every exorcism scene in film that has been made since 1973 has been inspired by or straight up derivative of William Friedkin's The Exorcist.
His is the OG.
Just straight up. Like, you can't even get around it. Like, if you asked Peter Jackson himself, he would be like, yeah, dummy. Like, this is The Exorcist, you know? And he uses a couple different tricks from The Exorcist in the films that we'll get into, too.
Yeah, so should we talk a little bit about The Exorcist? Right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's one of the most iconic horror films, not only for the reputation we were just talking about even, but it's also being one of the scariest films ever made.
Lives up to that, in my opinion, still to this day.
And it's also one of the most critically acclaimed horror films of all time.
Yeah.
And was one of only two horror films, two guys, to ever be nominated for Best Picture at an Academy Awards.
Nice, right?
Yeah, the other was The Silence of the Lambs, which...
For a genre that's been popular for the last 100 years, that's pretty ridiculous, I think.
Yeah. There's so many good horror films.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It was over when Toni Collette didn't get a nomination for
Hereditary. Dude, oh my God, that is 100% true. Yeah, and then Mia Goth this past year didn't get for X or Pearl. Oh my God.
I also don't... Silence of the Lambs, I guess it's kind of horror, but it's not...
It's a horror. It's straight up a horror movie.
Yeah, but it's not...
But it's one of those ones that's like palatable for some reason. Yeah.
So this scene, the exorcism of Theoden. So this scene takes a few direct pointers from that iconic scene in The Exorcist.
Yeah, we got a short list of things that are similar here.
So one of the first similarities we've got are the commands being shouted at the possessed person.
Right?
In The Exorcist, you've got Father Merrick, played by the great Max von Sydow.
Yeah.
And he commands the demon to leave by the power of Jesus Christ. The power of Christ compels you.
Yep, and in the Two Towers, it's Gandalf, you know. I will draw you, Saruman, this poison is drawn from a wound. And, you know, all this shit. Also, the possessor threatens to kill the possessed. This happens in both films.
Yes.
Saruman says he will kill Theoden. And Pazuzu, the demon from The Exorcist, threatens to kill Regan, the little girl that's possessed.
You will not kill me.
You will not kill him.
The entire atmosphere of the room changes, too. The color shifts, there's light play, there's strange sounds. I love it's such a great moment when Gandalf, when he's like, you have no power here, Gandalf the Grey, and then he whips off his cloak, and it's
that
such a
bright
great
light. Ooh.
Which even more like just, you know, Gandalf's this pure white heavenly light, and you have just Theoden possessed and just scowling in his chair.
This old gray wrinkly guy just like
Yeah, and it's like just like The Exorcist, it's like a grotesque shell of a human being, you know? And there's also like flashes of faces during this process and like layering of faces on each other.
Oh yeah.
So like Saruman's face being layered on Theoden's face, and then also the devil's face is layered on Regan's face in The Exorcist during the exorcism.
Some fun editing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at one point you think it's all over too, and the possessor comes back for one last scare.
Yep, both films. Happens in both. When the demons cast out, the possessed person's appearance changes.
It's a pretty big change in that scene.
Yeah, it is in The Exorcist as well. Regan's eye color actually changes, and color returns to her face. She looks like a real little girl again, although she's got a bunch of scars on her face.
Yeah, she doesn't have like green shit oozing out of open wounds and things. All of a sudden, she's like healed up and good. Yeah. And in the same way, Theoden seems to become more young and healthy again. He looks like a regular-ass student instead of like a friggin' decrepit
old man.
Zombie
he cleans
man.
up really well.
A dotard, as it were, right? Isn't that what it means?
Dotard?
Does it mean like an old foolish person? A dotard? I don't know.
Did you just call me a dotard?
Are you? Did you call me a dotard?
What the fuck did you just say?
Anyway, yeah, the overlaying of the faces, we talked about that. Regan and the devil after her head spins around.
Her head spins all the way around. But she's fine.
Yeah. And Saruman's face is knocked back out of Theoden's body during the exorcism.
What a weird description.
Oh yeah, there is a cool flash of like Saruman's face at that point too.
Mm-hmm. We also have the possessed speaking in a voice that is not their own. In The Exorcist, Regan speaks several languages during and has several voices. She even speaks Latin and English in reverse.
The English in reverse is really fun.
Yeah, that shit is scary when Damien Karras is like listening to it and he's just like sipping coffee late at night listening to the demon's voice. Yeah. You guys got to see The Exorcist if you haven't. Holy shit. Stop this right now. Go watch The Exorcist. Come back.
Come back.
Yeah, and then, of course, in Lord of the Rings, in this scene, Theoden speaks with Saruman's voice at a certain point when Gandalf is casting him out.
Mm-hmm.
And, while all of this crazy-ass shit is happening, all the loved ones are just on the sidelines. Just, helpless, can't do anything.
Yeah, you got Father Karras. He watches dumbfounded as Father Merrick performs the ritual. He has to leave the room after a while because he can't handle it. And Eowyn, she stands by and watches Gandalf go to work on Theoden.
I guess that would really kind of add to the feeling of helplessness that the audience would feel too when you see this other characters sitting around like, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
I also have to give a shout out to Brad Dourif as Wormtongue.
Oh, hell yeah.
He's perfectly cast in it. And I don't think Peter Jackson has said this, but I feel like he probably cast him because he loves Chucky in The Exorcist 3.
Yeah, he's actually, Brad Dourif possesses somebody in The Exorcist 3.
Yeah, it's the well.
He's the
we don't want to give.
Oh,
away.
let's not spoil
Let's
Exorcist
not spoil
3. Well, watch
the
Exorcist.
30-year-old.
Yeah.
What? Pause this. Watch.
If you didn't already pause.
Skip Exorcist 2 like everybody does and go watch the third one.
And I also just want to say, too, Gandalf is a lot better at performing exorcisms than these priests are.
Oh, yeah.
It takes the priest forever to cast the demon out in The Exorcist.
And a lot of times they're scared, too.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got Ian McKellen like,
he's authoritative.
Oh, release you.
I mean, Theoden didn't even have time to get out of his chair. No, that was done right then and there.
Wham, yeah.
Exercised. Shall we move on to Helm's Deep?
Yes. So before we go any further, we have to talk about a large elephant in the room when you're talking about Helm's Deep, and that is Sam Raimi's Army of Darkness.
That does sound kind of weird that we have to talk about Army of Darkness.
Yeah, if you're going to analyze this film at this juncture, you need to talk about Army of Darkness.
Specifically, the Helm's Deep battle was what we're talking about.
Yes, 100%. Yes, exactly. Just the battle. This is not particularly horror, but it is horrific, and it is also directly derivative or inspired by a popular horror film.
Yeah, and it's one of Peter Jackson's favorite movies, and it's super influential for the Helm's Deep battle. Many shots and entire sequences are straight up lifted or highly inspired from Army of Darkness, and it's easier to just kind of think that it's inspired by because he loves it so much.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So for Army of Darkness, if just some background info on it, it was made in 1992, and it's the third film in the Evil Dead trilogy. The series follows Ash Williams as he fights against demonic entities called Deadites that have been summoned here from the Necronomicon, aka the Book of the Dead.
Right. Sounds awesome, right? If you haven't seen them, check them out.
Pause this. Go check out Evil Dead.
It's going to take you days to listen to this episode.
But the general plot of Army of Darkness is it takes place in 1300 AD. Spoiler warning for Evil Dead 2 if you want to mute it for 10 seconds. So at the end of Evil Dead 2, Ash is transported through a portal to 1300 AD, and once there, he must defend Castle Kandar from an army of skeletons and deadites that have come searching for the Necronomicon.
Hell yeah. I've actually never seen the later ones. I've only seen the first.
You've seen the first Evil Dead film?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Dude, it was such a jump going from 1 to 2.
We recently watched them together. That's right.
Yeah,
remember,
we watched the original, and then there was the Evil Dead, and then the Evil Dead 2, right?
Do you remember the weird? I gave that file to somebody, and I gave it was a file that's from the internet, if you know what I mean. And it started off in Hindi, remember? And the sound was horrible. We were like, "What the fuck is this shit?" We're watching Evil Dead in Hindi. It was so funny.
Yeah, the sound was so low and
it was just terrible. It was
a weird dub.
Some awful dub from India, yeah.
So let's talk about some of the similarities between these films.
Yes.
So the basics of both battles, the Battle of Helm's Deep and the big battle in this film, Army of Darkness, they're very similar. In Army of Darkness, it is night and fog covers the battlefield, and Castle Kandar, an army of darkness, even resembles Helm's Deep.
Yeah, there's one main length of wall with a tower behind it, and the general layout of the walls and the gates are very similar as well.
Yeah, both battles begin with the defending army holding their drawn bows, waiting for their leader to give the order to fire. And we kind of realized after watching Army of Darkness and the Helm's Deep battle that Ash is pretty similar to Aragorn and Lord Arthur. The king in Army of Darkness acts fairly similarly to Theoden.
Yeah, you have like one character that's like used to fighting one way, like the Theoden character. Then you have Aragorn that knows like how to get the job done though.
Yeah.
And that's Ash, right? In the Army of Darkness. And it's Aragorn in Helm's Deep. It's kind of cool.
There's also, like, just like we talked about scenes that seem inspired or lifted by. There's a part in Army of Darkness where Ash gets pulled up the wall with a rope, just like Aragorn does with Gimli.
Yep, after defending the gate, right?
Yep. Yeah. And then, during the battle, both battles, the attackers use a battering ram. And in both instances, the defenders rain down arrows and stones. And the shot in both of those battles are like super similar.
Similar.
Looking up at the defenders, throwing rocks down.
Yeah, it's like the same angle, the same kind of lighting structure, the same kind of lighting scheme. Yeah, it's pretty awesome actually.
Yeah, and then they also use like the exact same shot in both movies when they brace the main gate from the battering ram too. And then in the beginning of Army of Darkness, Ash saves the life of Henry the Red, which is a fellow king. And during the battle in Army of Darkness, he arrives with an army to help Ash, which is super similar to Éomer in The Two Towers.
Right.
One scene that is lifted straight from Army of Darkness is when a wise man holds a bag of gunpowder over an open flame and Ash slowly pushes his hand away from it. It's almost exactly the same as when Saruman pushes Wormtongue away.
Yeah, when he's making the bombs, the fire of Orthanc, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact same shtick that they do. It's really it's funny. It's an ode to when a joke that you like. But yeah, it's crazy how similar the two scenes are.
Yeah, I always thought that was a really funny bit.
Yeah, I always thought it was funny too.
And then you also can just see Sam Raimi's influences with the cinematography and editing in Helm's Deep, or where Peter Jackson drew inspiration from.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of Dutch angles in both battles, and both of them love to do these quick cuts and zooms with this Dutch angle
and sometimes they'll Dutch from one side to the other, while zooming,
and it's so effective at showing how disorienting being in battle that would be. And it makes a really good double feature if you want to watch Army of Darkness and then at least watch the Helm's Deep battle scene afterwards. It's a really fun.
Yeah, that's what we did in prep for this episode, and it was quite eye-opening.
Isn't the editing style where you've got like a scene going on in one area with like close-ups and like half shots, and then all of a sudden it'll zoom out once, and then it'll zoom out again and pan to a different area of the battlefield, zoom in once, and then zoom in again, and you're on a personal level again? I think you were telling me that was a technique that was pulled from...
I wrote a film paper about this about 12 years ago. Yeah, and Joel read it. I compared the Battle of Helm's Deep to the Siege of Babylon in the 1916 movie Intolerance.
Oh, that's
D.W.
what
Griffith.
it was. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the editing is strikingly similar from a film from 1916. Yeah, check that out. That's a public domain. That's on YouTube. The fall of, I think it's called the Siege of Babylon from Intolerance. D.W. Griffith, terribly racist man. He made he made the movie Birth of a Nation, which is a outstandingly racist film. But Intolerance is much better. Check out Intolerance. Anyway, yeah, I should throw that up on the Discord, Joel, if I have that paper still.
That'd be a fun read. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we've got for you today, guys. You may notice that we're stopping after we're talking about the Two Towers.
Yeah, it happened again, you guys. We ran out of time. We had to split the episode. So there's so much more to analyze in The Return of the King. Keep in mind, it does hold the record for most Academy Award wins of all time, tied with a few other films.
We're going to have a lot to talk about.
We're going to have a lot to talk about. So we're coming back next week to finish off the trilogy and talk more horror. And we're doing this to make Halloween last forever.
Yeah.
We're taking back November. I say it's Halloween all the way to Thanksgiving, in my opinion.
Yeah?
Yeah, dude.
I'd be down with that.
Yeah, Halloween creep. Like Christmas creep every year? Fuck that. Halloween creep every year.
I'd be okay with some Halloween bleed, too. It could just keep going.
Yeah, just keep bleeding.
Yeah, let it keep on.
It's funny because we always watch 30 horror films every October at least, right? And it's funny because I keep watching them into November because there are movies that I wanted to watch during the marathon that I missed out on.
Yeah.
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 Well, we're just excited that we get to do Halloween twice for you guys. You guys get more Halloween. Doesn't
More
everyone
Halloween.
want more Halloween?
Everyone wants more. But yeah, some final thoughts on this this first part here. Even though The Lord of the Rings is not considered a horror film, it does have many moments of horror and also disgust. We're going to be talking more about that disgust factor in the next episode.
Yes, there's been specific scenes I've been trying not to talk about.
Yeah, because you know they're coming in the gross section.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Peter Jackson's horror chops made The Lord of the Rings the experience we know it as. Yeah, and I think everyone here would agree it wouldn't be the same by any other filmmaker.
It would not be the same. The intensities wouldn't be as intense. The scary parts wouldn't hit as hard. Yeah, we really enjoyed looking at Lord of the Rings through the lens of the horror film nerd, and I've only been able to do that in my recent years of life.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like you have to look at Lord of the Rings this way in order to fully understand not only its place in film history, but also the filmography of its director, Peter Jackson.
As we know, who started with horror films.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about that, check out last year's Halloween special, Our Friend Peter, because guess what? Again, this is coming out on Halloween, Peter Jackson's birthday.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Happy birthday, Peter Jackson.
Happy birthday, Peter.
Happy birthday, Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
That's really cool, actually.
So next week we got part 2 coming for you guys, episode 89. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, more Halloween.
But yeah, thanks for listening to KOT Podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Stay up to date on new episodes, and please rate or give us a nice review.
And a big thank you to our patrons. Don't forget to go subscribe on Patreon. Help us out. That's patreon.com/KOT Podcast. Subscribing there can get you some exclusive content, so go check it out. We also accept private one-time donations. We have PayPal and other services. Contact us on your favorite social media, and we'll make it happen. We appreciate anything you're willing to offer.
Speaking of social media, make sure you go ahead and give us a follow on our different platforms. Check out our Discord. There will be a link in the description. I would say that's where we are most active. But we're also on TikTok at keep_on_Tolkien_podcast. You can find us on X, formerly Twitter, at KOT Podcast.
For now, maybe.
For
depending.
now, maybe.
For now.
This episode, it's early October right now, so
We'll
we
see.
got time.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Perhaps formerly X soon enough.
Yeah.
We're also on Facebook at official Keep On Tolkien, Instagram at Keep On Tolkien Podcast, and don't forget to check out our merch store as well. That link is keep-on-tolkien-podcast.tmail.com.
Well, guys, it was so good to be back for the second half of Season 7. We can't wait to bring you all the bullshit we're about to bring you.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be so much fucking fun. Yeah, I'm Danny J.
And I'm Joel N.
I'm Trevor D.
I'm Joe Vasky.
Hell yeah. And we are who?
Keep on Tolkien.
Ray and Tulava. This is Halloween, 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 Halloween. God, I love Halloween.